everyone, and welcome to our December episodes here at Bronie's Desk, the last month of the year. And of course, it's December. Got to have something Chrissy. I have something Chrissy on every day in December. Anyway, so for our first call at Bronie's Desk for December, we have back the beautiful pharmacist Lisa Hamil. And she's talking on movement today. Now, before you all came on, she always asks us for questions first. It's very unusual. She does things differently, this beautiful Lisa. And Michael I've got Michael Freeman here, another friend of mine from Queensland, on the screen with us at the moment because he was talking to us about movement, which led into a question that I said, Michael, you can talk about that and ask that question when Lisa comes back on, because I probably won't say it as well. But anyway, so before Lisa starts, we're going to pass it over to Michael. Could you please repeat your story and question?
Okay. Hi, Lisa.
Yes. Hello. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. Yes, I heard a story about a lady who quite remarkably managed to get through stage 4 cancer, and her story was quite remarkable. She went through chemo and radiation, but however, she was bedridden a lot of the time, a lot of fatigue, as you would. She started doing fasting, which was great. I think that really helped. But one of the things, her goals through her recovery was to do movement, and she really each day she couldn't move hardly at all. So she said, I'll set myself a goal. So she did 5 minutes one day, and that lasted for about a week or so, if I remember. And then it was 10 minutes after that for another week or so. And then eventually, after about 6 months, she was doing an hour's walk. And then she went back to her doctor, oncologist, and they were quite amazed how the tumors were not only stopping but receding as well. And I'm thinking, movement, and I think there's an association with amino acids within the body that actually need to be consumed by movement because it's also a fuel for cancer. So that's generally what I heard, and I wonder what your thoughts are on that in that area.
Wow, that's almost the most perfect question we could discuss this afternoon or morning for you. And how is she doing at this very moment?
No, she's fine. She did recover. She's still got a long way to go, and I think it's an ongoing battle. You know, particularly if she hadn't had the chemo and radiation, I think her battle now is getting the aftermath of the chemo and radiation, quite honestly. And I think most of us know that here, particularly in longevity. But because of that, it's given her a chance. So she's always going to be have a challenge with her health because of the chemo and radiation. But she attributes it to the water fast, which was I think it was about 20 days to start with, and she's done successive water fast for 7 days, but it was also the movement to go with that, which also really motivated. And that was the only thing that could motivate her, because she could actually physically go a little bit longer on the movement until even today she does lots of walks twice a day.
So tell me, how old is she?
She was, I think she was
approximately
45.
She's 45.
Yeah.
So she's actually in a lot better shape than if she was doing this at 65, 55, 85, so that's a big benefit there. The other thing is, when was her last chemo dose? Because she hasn't been on treatment for a little while, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's been a few months now, about maybe 4 or 5 months now. So, and she's still making progress, I think.
Yes.
I've lost touch with her, but when you came on with movement, I suddenly remember that particular Okay.
You know, this is absolutely a most amazing lesson in itself, because we can see the success that she's been able to achieve. So we know getting cancer is not a one-way street.
No, exactly right.
Right? And that is so amazing. But I can give you a few more amazing highlights associated with this. So what type of cancer did she have?
She had stage 4, but it was all. She had funny enough, she had a little cancerous lump on her earlobe, and she thought that was primary, and they didn't do a blood test or anything. And then after about 8 months, they suddenly did a blood test because she wasn't feeling well, and all of a sudden, all her organs had got on pancreas and everywhere. And so but as I said to a friend, I don't think that was the primary reason. The little cancerous cell on her earlobe, which was taken care of. There's something else going on in her body, and that was causing that to show on her skin.
Yeah, true. Okay, so it hasn't really been identified with any particular organ, such as liver or pancreas or the bone, right? She didn't have bone cancer or a blood cancer, right?
No, I think what happened was all of a sudden she was staged from nothing. It seemed nothing, but obviously it was there in the background to stage 4, and it was all over the place. And,
right. Okay.
I don't know. Somebody's. I wasn't that familiar in talking to her about specifics, but it was just a story that came out, and it was the movement that she created, the target she created for on a daily basis that really
turned it around, right?
Turned it around. Well, in her mind, because it was a target all the time.
Yeah, you see, that is so amazingly beautiful of an example, because we take nutrients, we do wonderful things for our body, we eat foods that are good or not so good, but whatever happens in our body is only the result of how our circulation gets nutrients to the organs that need the nutrients, gets the chemotherapy where it needs to react with the cancer cells. So the movement helps just circulate everything. Last week, we really focused on circulation, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember last week? Okay. So there's microcirculation, the little teeny tiny vessels, blood vessels in the retina and in the end organs. And her having gotten chemotherapy, I'm presuming it was IV. Did she have to go in to get IV treatments, or was she taking something oral? But whatever she was taking, it had to get out into the body where it could impact the cancer cells. Yeah. And that is assisted by, even though she's tired, any movement that she was able to put together, even though she may have been tired, all of that movement just propelled the distribution of the chemotherapy. And the body naturally has its own immune system. The body naturally has natural killer cells. It has a lot of interleukins and other, nitric oxide is phenomenal. It's one of those universal compounds throughout our body. It helps stimulate and open up the blood vessels so that you get good flow, reduce blood pressure. It opens up the brain. It even works as an antidepressant, if you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And so circulation that we're talking about tonight and movement is what helps boost circulation in a phenomenal way. So for her to get up and walk, even if it was from her bed to the bathroom. Now, this is an amazing statistic in the culture of Japan. One of their biggest proponents towards longevity, they have the highest number, or an extremely high number, of people living over 100. Like 90,000 people in their little country are over 100 years old. And one of the main reasons they believe that happens is because they do not sit on a chair.
No.
Can you imagine what life would be like if we either stood or to eat, or like even now with this conference, you squat down on your knees and sit on the floor, or else you just sit. I don't know if you can see me with my computer here, but that, see, like here's an example. My floor is down there, and I have a semi-table available that'll come in handy. But if you look at what happens, you know, their culture, they just get together and, you know, they'll just even squat like this, and they'll sit and talk to each other like this. What do you think about that? Just that simple thing, because let's say you're working on a project, you're paying the bills or whatever, or, you know, just chatting with your friends and having a cup of tea or whatever. Do you realize how many times you have to get up and go to the bathroom, or get up and get a cube of sugar for your tea, or find something in the refrigerator that you want to snack on? And that's extremely therapeutic. So we would be a lot better off if we just got rid of our chairs. What do you think about that? Okay.
I agree.
And then, no, because you see, it's just a natural form of exercise. I'm sitting here on the ground, and this is part of their culture. As a matter of fact, even in biblical times, they did not sit at a dining table. They did have tables, but they would often eat just lounging around on cushions on the floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you believe it?
Yes.
I also think what I've been doing the last year or so is when I get up from a chair, I purposely put my arms in and then try and get up. And it's got so easy now. And when I was at the vet, I've got I'm funny enough, I'm sitting in the back in a car with a big bull Arab dog in the back. He had to have his stitches out. The vet got down on the floor. We pushed the dog over. I had to get down on the floor. And it's a bit of a struggle getting up from the floor. And I think, oh, bugger, you know, I've got to work on that. I've got to work on the squats. I've got to work to go on from the floor upwards. But you're right.
See, now that's just a cultural thing. But one of the other thing is with parenting with children, they're on the floor crawling around. And if you get down on the floor and play with them, that's another very therapeutic thing you can do. And one of the movements I was going to advocate for today is like, here I'm standing. Okay. And then instead of, one of the big famous ones is just the squat, right? Just to be able to come down and go up like this uses the gluteal muscles that strengthen the biggest muscle mass that you have on your body. And by doing that type of thing several times a day, you do phenomenal benefits for not only circulation, but just strengthening those muscles that eventually will break down if you don't use them to help you just even get out of a chair like you've been working on yourself. And this very day, I went and visited a very dear friend of mine who's almost 10 years younger than I am. And unfortunately, her husband was extremely successful. They had millions of dollars all over the place. She has 2 children and several grandchildren, but she was never really interested in doing anything, you know. And so she would just lay around and enjoy the luxury of the lazy life or whatever. She'd never do laundry. Not that requires a whole lot of a physical exercise, but she wasn't into mowing the lawn, pulling weeds, sweeping, and all that kind of stuff, you know. And just a very sedentary life, sitting and watching television, not even playing with the kids on the floor because whatever the reason was. But she just was not physically active. And now she's like 150 pounds overweight. She has to use a walker and a wheelchair. She can barely get out of bed. It's a very sad, sad thing. And the most exciting thing in her life, now that she's living in assisted living, is getting up for breakfast from 7 to 8 or whatever, having lunch from 11 to 12, and then having dinner. But she doesn't do anything with the calories. It's not like she's, you know, using any real energy to exist. And I don't even want to tell you about the food that they serve there in her assisted living place. You know, they come and clean up her, she doesn't have to sweep her, she doesn't have to make her bed, she doesn't have to clean anything in her apartment. It's all taken care of for her. She has no excuse to really exert herself because they do everything for her. But the food that they eat is all the wrong color. There's no real greens or reds. And like this morning, she said she had eggs, pancakes, and sausage or whatever. So I said, eat the eggs and the sausage, don't eat the pancakes. She says, okay, So there's a lot to be learned in that regard. But when I would watch her eat some of her other meals, everything on the plate was basically beige or white, gravies, nothing green. And then the dessert was like cream puffed, fruit or something, fruit that was covered up in creamy stuff, cakes and pies and whatever. But it's almost, it's a very sad movement in terms of nutrition, because we don't need all that food. Now, the other thing is when you said that your friend had a fast.
Yes.
She went on a water fast for a period of time. That's a huge benefit because, cancer cells love sugar. And they love glucose and carbohydrates. Okay, they just love that because it's really easy for them to use it and proliferate. What's interesting about cancer cells is they really do not survive very well if they don't get enough circulation. I have a very, well-studied doctor that's actually an angiogenesis. That means the production or the generation of circulation in our body. One of the first things that cancer cells do is they try and garner the resources in our body to build blood vessels for the supply of nutrition and oxygen for them, or just basic nutrients to keep them alive and proliferating, so they have enough to make more protein and more cells and all that kind of thing. So they actually corner our resources in our body to circulate what they need at their site of growth. And then once they get big enough, they can jump into the circulation and spread to other parts of the body. And then you get metastases like your friend, where it spreads all over the place. I mean, different cancers behave in different ways, but that's just a semi-overview of what cancer cells are known to do. Aside from robbing the body of nutrition, they don't like it when natural killer cells show up because that's part of the immune system that's designed to destroy those cells. If we develop sluggish blood, which often happens if we don't hydrate sufficiently, if we don't get enough blood in our enough water in our bloodstream, when the bloodstream, we talked about this a little bit last time as well, not going to donate blood. When you donate blood, you thin the blood supply out. And it's not as easy for the blood to glob onto each other. And it's easier for cancer cells to get caught in that type of blood that's thickened and then spread all over the place. So when you have really fluid blood where it's not sticky, it's a lot harder for cancer cells to metastasize. It's a lot easier for natural killer cells to try and destroy them. They don't get a lot of cancer cells do not like oxygen because oxygen can be toxic to different types of cancer cells. So that's an important player there. But it's mostly
I believe the cancer cells revert to a very primitive stage where there wasn't oxygen on the planet with the actual cell, and they were fermenting rather than using oxygen. And that's when the mitochondria comes in, when the mitochondria and our human cells merged so that the cells could actually live because the mitochondria uses the energy, blah, blah, blah. But it's fascinating.
Yeah, they bring the energy into the system, and they all play a role. And one of the valuable things about the movement that I was going to talk about today is the way our body responds to movement by creating more nitric oxide, NO, nitric oxide. As a matter of fact, I'm giving a little presentation in a couple of days on how to move from emotion to promotion.
Yeah.
And nothing happens in terms of progress unless we move. And if we have good emotions, we are inspired to move and do wonderful things. If we have poor emotions, we tend to just slump around and mope. We don't move. But just taking that first step and moving in a direction, even though it's not even that productive, but like your friend, she walked wherever she walked, she got the ball rolling. And that allows her to move to the next step of walking an extra block or walking an extra 2 or 3 blocks and building up her stamina. And in the process of doing that, she's also boosting nitric oxide that's released by the blood vessel walls, which oxygenates, reduces blood pressure in general so it can restore health. And having the blood the blood vessel dilate, allows more nutrients to get to where they need to get, and it allows the chemotherapy to get where it needs to go and be a therapeutic influence and impact. But what's interesting about nitric oxide in general is the way it expands and allows our body to have more energy for the mitochondria to do their stint, And so it's kind of an interesting thing. You don't feel like you want to do something because you're tired. But the best thing you can do is the opposite of what you feel. If you feel tired, get up and start moving, and you will begin to feel motivated to move even more. Newton says a body in motion will stay in motion. A body at rest will stay at rest. And that transition from rest to motion or from motion to rest actually takes more energy than to just stay moving or stay in one place. I mean, ideally, we want the balance between the two, because there's times when you really do need to be restful. And even though we're sleeping, our body is going gangbusters by producing new cells while we're sleeping. We're unconscious. We have no idea that that's happening. But our body is like a beehive of productivity. And circulation is a vital part of it. And movement is what allows that circulation to be more proficient, because it just opens things up. Now, another thing, especially in the area of cancer, is the impact of the lymphatics. The lymphatics are the sewer systems of our organs and tissues. And if we don't have enough movement, all that garbage that's always produced in the metabolism of cellular activity, no matter which organ and where, there has to be a way for that to be extricated from the cell, move into the lymphatic system, and then it has to be flushed out. And that's not what the circulation does. The lymphatics takes all the waste products and gets rid of that to help cleanse the inner system. It's like taking a shower on the inside. And so by moving and walking, it helps her body get rid of all the toxic byproducts that either the cancer cells or her own body produces. And that's true for all of us. That's why it's so important to stay active. And as I'm going through these phases of consideration regarding cancer, we talked about the importance of bringing the nutrients and the medication to where it needs to work, the impact of the lymphatics. Oh, this is the thing. This whole idea of fasting, that was a brilliant move on her part, because although she's fasting and denying herself certain nutrients, especially perhaps even proteins and important things that are not carbohydrates, the body is so smart with what it has left to work with after it's been doused by cancer, is it will actually break down all these, what they call zombie cells, these cells that are geriatric cells or in our rest home somewhere, just taking up time and space, but they're not doing anything productive. But the body will actually disassemble those cells into the little amino acids needed to make the real protein that will do something effective for the body. So the fasting idea is hugely beneficial in this situation.
Yeah, I think what she was finding that after I think it's day 5, day 1 to 3 was very difficult because you got the hunger, you got the fatigue, blah blah blah, and then she was saying that after day 5, apparently according to the research, and I've done a lot more research on it, after day 5, the body then hunts for whatever it can consume, and one of the things is dead cells, one of the things is damaged cells. And part of that is cancer cells that are damaged. And that's why there's a lot of emerging research saying that that's the reason why. We didn't know it before. I knew it 10 years ago, but I didn't know why. And it's because the body then starts hunting and taking anything it can find after 5 days of fasting. It has to have something. And what it does, it actually zooms in on the cancer cells and actually starts eating the damn things, which is quite remarkable.
There you go. See, that's just shows you how amazing the body is, and we think we have to give it more, and yet the body knows. It's just like if we were stranded out in an island, we would find those berries if there were any. We would find any leaves that could be eaten. We would find the mushrooms that worked. We would learn to feed off of ourselves. Feed off of what was available there, right?
There was a caveat, though. One of the things that she did say, and remember her friend saying, if you do a fast, you've got to do it with somebody. You've got to do it with a professional, because otherwise it can be dangerous. So you've got to do it in a professional way, and you've got to tell your doctor. You've got to maybe go to a clinic or do it with a professional who's done the fast.
Well, she jumped into a big one.
Yeah.
She jumped into a big one. It's possible to have mini fasts every single day. And that was one of the other things I really wanted to bring up today. And, depending on which experts you talk to, but it's very helpful if you can limit eating to 1 or 2 meals a day instead of 3, but especially not snack in between meals. You have to give your body a total reset of nothing so that it can really utilize those zombie cells. And ideally, now some people do it different ways, but I've been a big faster all my life because we were raised in the Orthodox Church, Eastern Orthodox tradition. And what we would do is we'd go to confession on Saturday afternoon or evening, and then from midnight until the next morning, when we would go to church, we would take communion at church in the morning. And we would not, the custom was to not eat all the way from the night before until the next day when you actually took communion, which was bread in real wine. So that was well over 12 hours, of no eating. And that was a weekly practice.
Right.
Okay. So fasting was a really big deal. Then when I went into college, I wanted to lose weight, so I was fasting all the time, right and left, But I wasn't really doing it. I just trained my body to do certain fasting periods. But one of the things that really helps, because I actually just went on a 3-day, quote unquote, modified fast this last week, and that is you can wake up in the morning, have a little coffee, because coffee does not disrupt your fast. It doesn't have carbohydrates in it. It doesn't really have sugar. It has some nutrients and stuff like that. It doesn't have protein and all that kind of thing. But you can use it to give you a boost, maybe boost your heart rate or whatever. Not a whole lot of nutrition in plain coffee because you're not going to put sugar and cream in it. But you can put either olive oil or coconut oil. And your body can use those oils or that type of fat as a source of energy. And it'll get you through the morning like with flying colors. So what I did this last week is I slept in and I had my first meal at 2 o'clock, 2 to 3. And then I didn't eat anything until the very next day in the morning, I'd have that coffee with the coconut thing I was telling you about to get me going. And then I would wait until 2:00, and then I would eat something, like broccoli and fried eggs or whatever, in butter. And then I wouldn't eat anything until the very next day for lunchtime around 2:00, something like that, 2 to 3. And then nothing until bedtime, go to bed, and then you sleep through all that time. But it was amazingly energizing to do that. Yeah. And I was surprised how much better I felt just having that coconut or the olive oil. By the way, having a tablespoon of olive oil before bedtime is also another good thing. Or if you get up in the middle of the night, you can have a tablespoon of olive oil because it'll help decrease the inflammation of the cortisol that's released early in the morning. It's part of our circadian rhythm to do that. And it doesn't make you urinate more, so to speak, because you're just having fat. But it does give your body energy because your body is doing a tremendous amount of work, especially in the brain, all day long, really.
And
but don't have... there's certain fats you don't want to have. Yeah.
A good one is to walk to the coffee place and walk back again.
Well, yeah, that's another one. Okay, yeah, that's another recommendation.
That's a bit of a walk for me.
Well.
Yeah, well, where I live, I'm lucky enough I can walk to the grocery store, to the post office, to any shopping I need to do. The only time I have to use my car is if I'm taking a bunch of products to my friends over the hill from Santa Cruz to the San Jose area, and I have to drive on the freeway. But around town, it's amazing. Everything is right there at my fingertips. And then while I am walking, it's easy for me to do somewhere between 5,000 and 20,000 steps a day. It's really crazy.
The other thing you can do is you've got to create a precedent by not always going into the car park of where the coffee place is or the shops are, but to purposely park the car away from the car park, which is good, by the way, because we have a term. We have car park bingles. We call them bingles, little dents. Get rid of that, and also move from where the car is to wherever it is. Make that a habit, and back and forwards, because really we're so in tune to park near the shop as near as possible, park near the cafe as possible, and that's the problem. We just have to have it in our head. It's ideal to walk even a little distance, even if you have to drive to the shops.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when I was working in pharmacy, the manager would always say, never park your car close to the store. I want you to park it as far as possible because we want all the close parking spots available for the customers,
Yeah, but also for your health.
Making it easy for them, But that's what planted the seeds initially for me, But I did learn that it's better to walk, if you can. So park your car farther from the front door.
And another thing is to own a dog. You have to take him out, whether it's snow, hail, whatever.
Those are other little tricks that are really helpful and fun, I believe. Yeah. So now, did we answer all the questions for your friend? Was there something else that came up? But can you see how successful she was as a result of fasting, walking?
And yes. The nitric oxide was interesting because a lot of people don't know that. Breathing through your nose and through your sinuses rather than through your mouth, because that's where your nitric oxide comes from.
Yeah, I just listened to a conference the other day where they recommended on the top of their list is to go to bed with a piece of tape on your mouth.
We had that conversation, didn't we, Bronwyn?
Yes, we did a few months back.
And I showed you how to do that.
Now,
here and tab it off, and then you can have water. So shut your mouth at night time.
Now the thing is, if you're a frequent flyer and the mouth breathing thing, you can just do it for an hour or two, and work your way up to 3 and 4 and 5 and all the way up. It's not like you have to do the whole first night that way because it may take a while to get used to it. But our body is pretty adaptable. We just have to get it in the right direction. And then...
Well, funny enough, I had a lot of sinuses and I was very I was really scared to do that. I thought I was going to pass out in the night and die. But I started doing that. I listened to a wonderful guy who actually got the Nobel Prize for nitric oxide. He said, tape your mouth up at night. Get this paper tape, which is so easy and so cheap. It's only about a couple of dollars to buy the thing. Tape
Sure.
your mouth up. And he said, your body will react to that. It will know
Yes.
that you've taped up your mouth, and it will clear all your sinuses. And I've done that now for probably close on about 8 or 9 years now. And I've never had an incident at night at all. And if I don't have it, I panic because I thought, oh, damn, I haven't put the tape on. I'm not going to have a good night's sleep because I'm going to be breathing through my mouth, and I'll be parched, and I'll be getting up. And it's such an easy thing to do with that nitric oxide. Absolutely. So powerful. And with the movement, of course.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that fits in the same category is the whole breathing thing. And that would be to breathe through the nose.
Yeah.
Hold your breath for 5 seconds. Breathe out with your mouth. Hold it for 5 seconds. Hold. So in with the nose and breathe out with the mouth, and 5 seconds on both sides. And if you're a walker at all, like for instance, let's say you park your car at the end of the parking lot and you're going to walk into the store to get groceries or whatever, if for that period of time you could just hold your breath. How long can you hold your breath? How long can you hold your breath? Now, it would be ideal if you could hold your breath for a minute or 2 or 3. When we were kids swimming underwater, we'd try and hold our breath as long as possible so that we didn't have to slow down our swimming. What do you think about that? But if you can walk a certain distance, or maybe even count out 20 steps on your walk or whatever, hold your breath and walk up a flight of stairs, or half of flight of stairs. But you can train yourself to do these little breathing exercises, because the more you hold your breath in the process of walking, it really boosts and strengthens your mitochondria.
Yes.
Those are the energy centers, and it also helps make more nitric oxide. Nitric oxide. So this little presentation I'm going to give in a couple of days, I was telling you, going from emotion to promotion without saying no. So when you say no, does that bring up positive feelings or negative feelings?
Well, negative usually, but it really depends on the question that you're saying no to.
Very true. And so what I'm saying is, make sure that every time you say no, what you really mean is nitric oxide. N-O. Nitric oxide. Because in order to facilitate the nitric oxide to do what it needs to do, you've got to move. You're never going to finish any project until you move. You might do a lot of thinking, but you can even think a lot better if you breathe, get the nitric oxide going, and that type of thing. Sometimes you have to make a little game out of everything, and
that's what we do with kids, isn't it? Even putting the toys away at night.
Absolutely. Yeah. See, that's a problem. We think we have to grow up, but we really don't. When I was growing up, my favorite show was Peter Pan, because he didn't want to grow up, and I didn't either, because I'd rather play. It's a lot more fun to play.
Yeah, that's true.
Just think of all the imagination that children come up with, right? They're Zorro or Superman or fairy godmothers or whoever, all the costumes they come up with. It's just a lot more fun to play.
It is. And sadly, our kids are not taught so much these days. They're too busy being bombarded by the media and other adults, and sadly here in Australia, the education department and government, to tell them they can be whatever they want. If they want to be a cat, they can be a cat. If they want to be they're born a girl and they want to be a boy, it's usually the other way around, but and they can go to school, right? The parents can drop them off, and then they walk through that gate and they tell the teacher, I'm a cat today. The teacher's got to provide a kitty litter. Now,
Well,
and that if the education department's doing that to our kids, or
we're having that
walk through the
problem
door
too.
and they say, "I don't want to be a boy today. I'm going to be a girl." And you can imagine what that's doing in schools is little boys who want to do things to little girls, say they're going to be a girl for the day, and that's what they're being full. Their brains are being filled with instead of good, awesome playing. I mean, yeah, sure. When we were kids, we sort of kind of, you play rolled as a girl or a boy or you're whatever, but that's different to being told you can identify at it and still go and then be allowed to go into the girls' change rooms and watch the girls all change for sport or whatever.
Well, that doesn't even
wrong.
touch. Yeah, that it's very sad because now the children are really not moving.
No.
They need to move too. They're not playing like they used to, the roller skating and the jump rope and the building of sandcastles or whatever they used to do. Because when you're sitting in front of a screen or even a book trying to educate yourself, you really do need to move.
Yeah, you do.
And that's not a good way to launch your habit of daily activities. Now, unfortunately, I think a lot of it has to do with how people are parenting their children. It used to be the parents taught their children, and now we send them off to school, and that was a good thing when the teachers were more like parents than they were adversaries, type of thing. But, children are so teachable.
Well, they send their kids off to daycare almost straight away. And
that's
why
straight away.
To have your child.
Yeah, and their biggest job really is to raise that child.
School has them long enough. You don't need to send them off beforehand. That's my opinion.
Well, now, the one big thing that seems to be emerging around here, and I'm sure it's happening over there, is the home-based opportunities with the computer so that mothers can be with their children more at home if they choose to do that. But sometimes mothers would rather escape their children and go to a job somewhere else. But the joy of teaching children is a whole different philosophy, really.
It is.
And it's
another subject.
It's a great opportunity.
Yes. Speaking of children, Harry does have a question in the chat, which he has asked me before, and I've given him an answer because I had the same issue myself. But it's that he has a young lady who's pregnant. She's 31 years of age, and she has Placenta Previa, and she's 23 months pregnant. Yeah, where the
23 weeks, right?
23 months. Beg my pardon. No, that's not right.
No, 23 weeks. Because it's only 9 months.
Right, Harry. But anyway, the percentage across the birth canal is usually what it means. That's how it was explained to me, because I had that happen to me, and he just wants to know how to help her.
Well, what is her doctor recommending? Because obviously I'm not a doctor, but it sounds like part of the placenta is dropping out of alignment.
It's across the birth canal is usually what it means.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But she's not ready to give birth yet.
No.
And is she experiencing a lot of discomfort as a result of this?
A little. But I've got to tell you sincerely, she started using the Healthy Body Start Pack last week. And
Oh, Harry, you muted yourself.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. If you put your camera on, I can bring you up so that Lisa can see you. And he keeps muting himself. Anyway, he was saying that he's got her started on the healthy. Okay, good on you, Harry.
Start packing after 3 or 4 days. The transformation in her body was quite incredible. And somebody did suggest too that you should rest a lot and put your feet up above your head, and that will help as well. And she has been doing that for most of the last week, and she found that there's a miraculous change in her bottom. But we believe, we have the faith that the placenta is going to come back to its normal position, because we also had this divine intervention, saying, I am divine. My placenta is in its divine position. And you say that to yourself, and you talk to yourselves as well, because it's all part of your body as well. So
Absolutely.
But I just want to repeat something you said, Harry, about the fact that because you cut out at the time, is about a week ago you started her on the Healthy Body Start Pack.
Yeah.
And that made a difference.
It made a difference in 3 or 4 days. It was just miraculous. And it was beautiful to see, because I didn't think that she would probably really follow through with it. You know, as most people are a bit reluctant to do too much. But I don't think that the doctors necessarily got an answer for that anyway, really. They want to do a cesarean, I suppose, on the lady if it gets to a point where she can't give natural birth anyway. But I just wanted to ask you, because with nutrients, had you experienced it yourself in your time of your professional experience, or any other ladies that had the same issues?
Well, you know, good nutrition, regardless of what's going on with the body, is always a good ground framework, you know, like a foundation. And perhaps the nutrients helped her feel a little more optimistic because she was taking care of herself better. And the nutrients energized her in different ways. It's hard to know exactly where everything comes from, but if she is fighting gravity to a degree, well, your feet are being elevated and you want to have the placenta go back to where it belongs because it's obviously dropped to a place in favor of gravity. We want to put it back where it belongs at a higher level, so it's not going to drop, right? So all those things, I would think her doctor would be jumping in and talking to her about that, because that's sort of a mechanical thing.
But
It's not really, they don't know. Well, because that's not in their training, but that's just almost common sense, right? I mean, if you've got something fighting gravity, you want to help put it back where it belongs, right? I mean, if I had that problem going with my placenta, I'd be standing on my head, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I have another friend, similar stage of pregnancy, and the baby's head engaged, and it was amazing. The number of people said, "Go to the pool and stand on your, just do handstands and get it to go the other way." But
it worked. Did it work?
I don't know. I haven't asked her yet.
Oh, okay.
But
you see, yeah, I mean, that's a very creative solution, and I'm sure some people can get it to work better than others. It's not the type of thing you'd write a prescription for or go see a pharmacy for, you know, that type of thing. But it's, you know, sort of like even chiropractic, you know, where you want your spine in alignment to get the best nerve flow and to let your body take care of what it knows to do, because we weren't built to have the placenta fall through the vaginal canal, right? That's not the way it was designed. Most children aren't born that way. So there's something out of alignment that needs to be corrected. And, you know, offering those nutritional agents just add to the benefits of what's available for the body to use, because it already knows what to do. You know?
Right.
So the other thing is this woman, prior to being pregnant, was she very active?
Oh, yeah, you better believe it.
She's a very active girl, right?
Rides horses is not good things, yeah.
What?
Rides horses. She used to ride horses, and basically she's just very active, come off a farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's different injuries that may interfere with having the placenta stay in the right place as well. So there's a whole historical consideration that needs to be made as well. You know, it's not that cut and dry, but it's good that she's come up with some progress where she feels better and she's elevating her feet at least, and hopefully things will resolve themselves a little bit better. I can't really speak to that with any firsthand experience. I'm just giving you what seems like what the body naturally does. It's almost like semi-common sense, but not really. But at least she's seeing improvement, And maybe the progress that she's experienced has helped her feel happier about the progress she's had, But she has at least another probably 10 weeks to go.
Yeah.
10 weeks is 2.5 months.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, thanks for that, Lisa.
Well, best of luck. That's really exciting. So we're going to have a baby in February or March coming up or something like that.
Yeah.
Got a few babies happening here too.
Are you? Well, that's good. Now, what we have to do is keep them away from their phones.
Yeah, it's a good loss of that. That seems to be where everyone lives, isn't it? On their phone.
Well, when I was growing up, the babysitter became the television. The television and all those programs that were being introduced to the world were the favorite thing for people to turn on. I have to get a quick drink of water. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so now it's becoming the phones and the tablets and computers and things. It was a good question, Harry.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I think one of the best things we can do is make sure that we train children to make their bed and read their bedtime stories and help mother make cookies or whatever she's doing for dinner, help clean up the dishes, at least take them to the sink, all those type of things. All those active, participating family member duties. Right? Then it becomes kind of like a little game. And then after we get done doing our chores, we can sit and color, or we can build something with our pickup sticks, or do a jigsaw puzzle, Use our brain.
Right. Yeah.
Brain and imagination or something like that. I don't know. It's a little difficult when you have to have two adults working every day to keep the ball rolling.
And which is more and more these days because it's so expensive. Everything's so expensive.
Yeah, not the only, but one possible thing would be to get together with other mothers and pull the children together, and we all do active things together with all the children. Then you trade around being the mother for the day type of thing, or the week or whatever. Yeah, I mean, there's ways to do things if you wanted to, share in the joy of succeeding with your children, because, children need to be socialized too. They have to learn how to get along with their friends as well as get along with their iPhone.
Yes, well, better to get along with their friends than the iPhone. All right, well, we're sort of kind of going a little over time now, but that's been a really interesting way to talk on movement. Thank you for that.
Well, there were a couple of exercises I wanted to bring out, but I did tell you about the Japanese chair that doesn't exist. So just scooping down or bending down on, getting yourself down on the floor without using a chair if you can, or use a chair for balance. Just sit yourself down on the floor, put your legs underneath, in a position where you can then pick yourself up off the floor and strengthen them against gravity. That will do wonders over the years. I don't think anybody's ready to throw their chairs away, but sitting on the floor might be a good idea as well, because you can easily have all these Zoom meetings sitting on the floor and just put a little box in front of you where you can set your computer and think in terms of how can I move my body, and still make it through the day. But using those gluteal muscles to get up and off the floor, like the squats, or even these things, where you're up on your toes. I don't know if anybody is involved with Tai Chi at all, but one of the easiest Tai Chi exercises, I don't know if you can see it, is to get up on the toes, And then as you come down, lift your toes, lift your heels, lift your toes, lift your heels, lift your toes. And you can work your way up to 100 of those at a time, and you will love the way you sleep. It'll really help you sleep like you could never imagine. It doesn't take a whole lot of anything to get you to sleep with that deep stage of sleep and no food for 3 hours before bedtime.
Yeah, well, that's always a trick, isn't it?
Well, they never used to have food. They never used to have refrigerators.
That's right. But it is a good thing. That's why you should have your dinner at a reasonable earlier hour.
Yeah, culturally speaking, in Bulgaria, from where I was born, my dad would always say, and my mother would too, but they'd get up early and milk the cows at like 5 a.m, right? Then they'd go to work or do their farm work or whatever, and then they'd come in and have lunch when it was really blistering hot outside and you didn't want to work in the sun. So you would come inside and you'd have your big meal for the day, load up on everything that you needed, go out and do another 3 or 4 hours well before, it got dark. And then whatever was left of the daylight. And then you come in and have like maybe a bite. And then off to bed. In other words, dinner was like nothing. The biggest meal was at lunch. And after lunch, you might take a nap, rest. And then go off and do your second shift of farm work or whatever else was going on. I mean, Bulgaria was an agrarian country primarily when my parents were growing up over 100 years ago. Things have changed in the last 100 years. But
it's a bit like that here because I'm a farming girl, and the thing, things changed, and you had your meal at night instead of in the middle of the day, especially when you had to leave to go to work, you had to or go to school.
Yeah, and so a big consideration that I think is helpful for everyone is, how comfortable do we have to be before we become uncomfortable? Because the less we move and the more comfort-oriented we are, we pay for it later, because we're not using our body, and then it won't even hold us up.
True. Very true. Exactly.
And you can't really take a drug for that.
Actual muscles.
Yeah, you can't really take a drug for that. You can try and do this testosterone stuff or whatever, and you talk about collagen. Oh, by the way, one last other tip I wanted to share. Have you ever considered bone broth as a source of collagen to help build muscle and restore the body?
I think that's what we used to always do, isn't it, growing up? And
I have it every day. Right? I have some every day. I make my own, and away we go.
Well, good for you. Oh, that's outstanding. Well, this is the latest thing. I don't know how many amazing things happened just this very last week, Grant, but I learned about the benefit of eggshell broth.
Oh.
There you go.
You have bone broth and you're boiling it, and you can take, if you have a dozen eggs, save all the eggshells as you eat them. Put them in a plastic bag or whatever, and when you've got your 12 eggshells, you can boil them just like you would bone broth for chicken feet or whatever you're doing. Boil them, simmer them for maybe an hour or two, and the water tastes like the most delicious egg-flavored tea.
Well, there you go. Wow.
Yeah,
I know grinding up eggshells is a waste of time.
But to crush up for the chickens.
No, that's a waste of time. It becomes a metallic egg, but boiling them puts them into a broth, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but you see, in my mind, I just think of it as being a bone broth with the egg instead of the bone. Yeah. But there's tons of nutrition in an egg. As a matter of fact, I was thinking of grinding it up myself, and just digesting it with my other foods. Because you make a powder out of it.
You can't grind them up because it's not small enough. You can't grind them up small enough, even with a professional
Okay, well
grinder.
then don't do that. Don't do that. But if you just boil it,
the water makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, well, the water looks just like egg flavored tea.
Yeah,
And you can add some garlic salt to it or anything else you want to. And then I have these little cups that measure a tablespoon or something. So I'll take 2 little tablespoons into some hot water. I dilute it out even. I don't even take it full strength. But I'll just have basically 2 ounces of that broth as a drink once a day. And I've only been doing it like 3 days, so don't expect too much. Yet, I'm still investigating the options, but it was recommended at an educational program I attended.
That's a good idea. Boiling the eggshells makes sense, but I'd run it through a sieve so you're not eating bits of eggshell.
No, don't. Yeah. But you know what? All the eggshells are at the bottom, and you can see all the beautiful yellowy fluid on the top. You know, it's just like a tea. It looks just like a tea. And my sister, I've been giving her my eggshells for years now because she has a beautiful garden, and she uses those eggshells in her yard to defray the snails. To come and eat her roses and whatever else snails like to eat. You know, so I've been giving them to her, and now I'm going to just boil them. But even after they're boiled, I can still give them to her to put in her garden or use them in my own garden.
I use mine in I put my eggshells in my compost pile. I've got a tumbler, and then it goes into the garden.
Okay. Yeah, all that sort of thing.
Well, there you go.
So have I given you enough information for today and taking overtime into your...
You have, and so the next time we see you will be in the new year.
Can you believe it? Already we're going to be at 26.
I don't know how willing you are to be available that your Monday, our Tuesday in January.
Well, I will be available as long as you're willing to listen.
Well, I'm here every Tuesday regardless. The only time I'm not is if we have an event, in-person event on that. Like we will be in February, the first week in February, be on the Gold Coast for that. So, but anyway, we'll close it out for today. As I ask you all nicely here in Bronie's world to stay safe, stay informed, be empowered, but do not live in fear, my friends. And when you're continually to move, make sure you find a way to move your body, then you too will be powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and most definitely very brave. God bless you all. Catch you again tomorrow here in Bronie's world. And thank you, my sweet, darling Lisa, for coming and sharing with us again this month. And we look forward to seeing you in January.
Well, wonderful. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and Happy New Year. God bless you.
All that. Merry Christmas, everyone. And so December's all about Christmas, isn't it?
It is.
So we all need to move a lot because most people eat too much for Christmas. And that's not
true.
All right. Well, catch us all later. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.